Awesome, awesome, awesome. Cool. I think this is going to be super helpful for everybody. And this will be recorded as well. But a nice group here together to just talk through all things VeeFriends Series 2. I guess VeeFriends as a whole, Series 2, Series 2 opportunities. I mean, obviously the NFT market as a whole is in a really interesting spot, but that leaves Series 2 at a really, interesting price point that I think Gary and VeeFriends gets excited about. So I'll give a little more context on myself. I'll let Joe introduce himself, and then we'll hop into a bit of a slide. Someone says anyone else can't hear it, so I want to clarify that people can hear me. Cool. Thank you, Ruben. Cool. So my name's Adam Rips. I work on the strategy team as well as customer success at VeeFriends. I met Gary through sports cards. I was a big sports card collector a few years ago and still am. Was a very big sports card collector and got to know Gary about 3 years ago. I grew a super close relationship with him. We were very fond of each other. Kept growing close over the last couple of years. And then he hired me last March to be his right hand in sports cards. Last March is a weird time because it's right before VeeFriends launched, right before he really went full NFT mode. And then he kind of had me transition to all things NFTs, and VeeFriends introduced me to the team. And me being the collector I am, just became a very avid VeeFriends collector. So I'm speaking from a collector's point of view, and then also from somebody who has the privilege and honor of and luxury of working closely with Gary on a day-to-day, and how he thinks about VeeFriends and all of its characters and scenes in Series 1 and Series 2. Let me remove a certain person here. Okay. And so that's pretty much me. I'm super excited to be able to chat with you guys, give a little more insight into collection, and then do any type of Q&A that I can. And I'll let Joe introduce himself as well.
Yeah, well said, Adam. Sorry. Yeah, my name is Joe Minakawa. I'm a NFT strategist and collab strategist at VeeFriends. It's always weird. I know Adam dove into how he, kind of met Gary. I was roommates with Gary in college at Mount Ida College in Boston. I heard him say that we were best friends, which in my mind we were. And then he's been like, oh, I've got a couple of best friends in there. I'm like, what? But we were friends in college, roommates basically all through college and probably after a little bit. I started working in NFTs when Gary started to get interested in them, and basically got obsessed with NFTs. Eventually started working for VeeFriends because it kind of became my passion. And as close as Adam is to Gary, I think that Gary definitely likes me better. But yeah, that's me.
Someone said, "Is Joe mindful?" Because this is interesting.
Yes. So do you want to take that, Adam, or do you want me to take that?
You can go for it. I'll start sharing my screen, and then we'll dive in. But
okay. So that was a great. So yes, Mindful Minakawa is probably the greatest character in Series 2 because I guess it was named after me. I wasn't fully aware of that at the origin of it. But yeah, so Gary said that it was based on me. So so yeah, that's a very interesting Easter egg to know that that the Mindful Minakawa was based on Joe Minakawa, his college roommate and friend. Yeah, which is weird. It was like joked about in the beginning, like, yeah, it's named after you, and I was like, is it? And they're like, no, everyone would laugh while saying it, so I wasn't sure, but eventually it became pretty obvious that it was about me. So honored. Love all the owners of the Mindful Minakawa, and yeah, and take it away, Adam.
Awesome. You can see the screen?
Yeah, that's great.
Great. So of course we're looking at VeeFriends. I'm Adam again with Joe. My email is below. I have a couple emails, but adam.rips@VaynerMedia is what I've been using for a lot of just questions around VeeFriends. I've been helping people for months now, just talking. I tell people you can't go to your friend's house or your cousin's house or whatever and talk about VeeFriends and have anyone think that you're making any sense. So I love to be a resource to people and just talk because it's not a thing that you can do elsewhere. So I would love to be a resource for anyone in any way, whether it's, hey, what do you think of this character? Or can you offer any insight into this? Or, can we get on a 5-minute call or 10-minute call to discuss whatever? Like, my email's up there. Always happy to answer any questions. But this, and I'll have it again at the end, but I would love to just take this time to go over collection info, VeeFriends as a whole, and then more into a character and scene breakdown and how Gary and VeeFriends is thinking of that. Market opportunities, just given where things are right now, and then we can jump into a Q&A with Joe and myself. Sweet. VeeFriends is an NFT project, and I'm sure you guys know this, but for a few that don't, I want to just run over it quick. But an NFT project that Gary Vaynerchuk, Gary V, created to bring together his ambitions of creating an IP and intellectual property around characters, which Gary drew, imagined, created himself. There are 283 total characters that pretty much just use alliteration and traits of qualities that Gary admires and believes in, both in and out of business. So for example, this is an empathy elephant. He has the patient panda, the happy hermit crab, the hardworking wombat, that type of inspiration across the whole collection. You'll also see that he hand drew them. Those hand drawings were then turned into VeeFriends Series 1 NFTs. And then the Series 1 NFTs were turned into Series 2, which is a much more animated, brandable, friendly version of all of the characters. So Series 1 at a higher level is the inaugural VeeFriends collection, the first ever release from Gary and VeeFriends. There's 10,255 tokens, and each token grants admission to VeeCon. Not sure if anyone had the privilege of going to VeeCon, but was a really awesome event and will also be taking place for 2023 and 2024, where those tickets are sent to Series 1 holders. And so Series 1 is also currently available on OpenSea. I think the floor price is right around 7 Ethereum. And there's tokens that range from admission tokens to VeeCon, gifting tokens where you get certain gifts, and then access tokens, which I really want to touch on later, because access tokens were actually discontinued in Series 2, and we're going to talk about why that is. That's very important. No, Albert Einstein is requesting remote control of my screen. We'll pass. VeeFriends Series 2, how many are there? So Series 1, there's 10,255 total. It was a more premium, it's the more premium VeeFriends collection, without a doubt. What Gary says is kind of the grails of VeeFriends. VeeFriends Series 2 was created really because Gary wanted to build this massive IP and build all of these characters in their own ways, but couldn't do it. He needed Series 2 to build the IP because Series 1 are these drawings and these doodles, which don't have the same appeal and couldn't, allow him to do that. And so Series 2 is really how the world is going to get to know all the VeeFriends characters, and how, Series 2 is kind of bringing Series 1 to life a lot more. So through all types of activations like cartoons, trading cards, children's books, games, merchandise, all of the above, the world is going to get to know Series 2 in this form, and which is significant because, somebody might not know what the Confident Cobra drawing looks like in Series 1, but the world will get to know Confident Cobra in its Series 2 form. So 55,555 total. Again, a collection that Gary intended to be more accessible and build the community in VeeFriends universe, totaling 251 characters. Every single character has 220 NFTs. So in Series 1, each character had 40. There were 40 patient pandas, 40 confident cobras, 40 bubbly buzzards, and in Series 2, it's 220 of these animated forms. Every single token is a unique one of one because each character is also on a background scene and in a pose, which we'll dive into very soon. But there are no two tokens that are exactly alike. Here is an example of Series 2 with Skilled Skeleton. There are 6 different main poses, and there's some other ultra rare ones such as Upside Down and such as Actively Competing, where it's actually moving on the card. But for our purposes, there are 6 main poses. Evolving is kind of the rarest of the bunch that were given exclusively to Series 1, and then the others could have been minted and I'll go into it a little bit more as well. But the original mint was in April for around $1,000 US, and you would get a random character. So Skilled Skeleton and all the other characters come in 6 poses. And then separately, there are one-of-one spectaculars, which are also known as like the cream of the crop of VeeFriends World, which were in Series 1 as well. And now in Series 2, you can see what those look like on the right. But essentially 6 different poses and then spectaculars as well. And all of these would fall, many different poses would fall in different background scenes, which we'll take a look at. Oops, let me go back a little bit. I'll touch on scenes as well, and then I'll go back to it. But these are what the scenes look like for people who aren't, as in the know, which is why we're here. There's 76 different scenes. And whether it's courtside seats or Marathon Mountain or the graveyard, many different scenes that Gary wants to build out similarly to the actual characters. I'll touch on this. I think this is more important, or this is better order than going back, and then I'm going to go back to the last slide. But Series 2, in Series 1 rather, Gary discontinued access tokens, meaning he had tokens where people can hang out, where they were hangout hawks, or they were FaceTimes, where people get 5-minute FaceTimes with him every year, or someone could play ping pong with him, or go to a basketball game with him. And these accesses were discontinued in Series 2. And so something that Gary's given me very solid insight into is that, and we saw it, I'm not sure if that works. Does this link work when I click it? It does. It's beautiful. So he created an activation that involved this pickleball court scene and said that anybody who owns this scene or his logo, I should have started with Gary owns a pickleball team. He bought a professional pickleball team. He made the competitive clown one of his new characters in Series 2, the logo. And he said that anybody who owns the pickleball court scene or owns the competitive clown gets exclusive access to a Major League Pickleball event that granted special VEE IP access in many different ways to people who attended. And I think this is one of, oops. I've got someone drawn on the screen, so let me try and fix that. Let's see here. Sorry for 1 second. I'm not sure how I can turn that off, but I think we're okay. Anyway, I think that Gary is thinking a lot about Series 2 and how he can potentially scale access through scenes. And so while I'm about to talk about characters and how character development is important and how Gary thinks about that, the scenes are also very important because they could potentially represent, I think scenes are going to be where how Gary develops where these characters live and interact with each other. It's going to be how he builds, whether it's in a movie or a children's book, where these scenes are and how they're developed and how they exist. Does the Marathon Mountain turn into his version of Space Mountain down the line? I think are all very interesting things to think about, and how these kind of come and turn into IRL things, and also character development or IP development within the scenes alone. And then additionally, there is a lot of potential for activations through scenes, just like the pickleball court. I think right when that kind of got released, we saw people getting the courtside seats scene for basketball, which involves basketball, and the 5-yard line, which involves football. And there are no guaranteed perks. So I do want to just put that out there, that there's no utility guaranteed with any of these. And so when I think about a scene and I think about courtside seats, for example, hey Daniel, could we kick Albert Einstein? I don't think it's actually him, and he's just requesting my screen a lot.
Pretty sure Albert Einstein passed away.
Thank you, Joe. And so I do think that it's really interesting for people to think about scenes in that way. For example, courtside seats, I think there's around 900 of them, so that's a lot, right? And I think it's a lot about personal preference. So hey, if you love basketball, it could be a cool thing to pick up, one, because it's collectible to you and it's enjoyable to you. And there is a potential, and I have no additional insight, but I'm speaking from a collector's mindset and how we saw pickleball happen, that he can say, hey, and the other thing is we don't know when this could be or how it may go down, but I'm going to give a couple examples of how people are thinking about it. Is maybe the courtside seats is, he raffles off anyone who has a courtside seat can enter to win 5 courtside ticket or a courtside ticket with me. There's 5 winners, and so maybe it's not as important. I'm going to try and turn off this. Oh, that was not ideal. So I apologize for that.
When you go ahead and reshare, Adam.
Yeah, yep, that's what I'm
under more. Yep, you got it.
But anyway, I think when the courtside seats, for example, can be something where he raffles off a few tickets, or it's a Zoom call where 1,000 people can join, and now all of a sudden people are watching for 3 hours with let me do this for 1 sec. Share Google Chrome. So I don't know if it looks like a big Zoom call where people can watch a basketball game with him, or if it's an in-person thing, or if it's a smaller section. And I think the same with like something like the wine cellar, where, hey, if you love wine, it could be a really cool thing to get for pure enjoyment, and maybe something does come out of it, whether it's in 2 months, 2 years, 2 decades, because that's how Gary works. Is it a wine library subscription, or is it discounted wine, or is it a virtual wine night or a physical wine night? I think those are all very interesting things to think about just with scenes. The most popular question I get is around how to think about Series 2 characters. So I know this is a pretty solid amount to touch on, and I'm going to try and talk through it a little bit. But in April, people can mint a random character for 0.335 Ethereum, which is equivalent to about $1,000. Gary was very intentional about this price because he viewed it as a value where people can get into the ecosystem in a more affordable way, keeping in mind VeeFriends Series 1 was very, very, and still is, much more valuable, and wanted to grow that community, and believed that it was a very strong value for people who got in. Another thing to note is that people who minted Series 2 also would receive a free box of trading cards called VeeFriends Compete and Collect. Man. Daniel, are you able to walk me through how to turn off this screen?
Yeah, go ahead and do the stop sharing.
Yeah, sorry guys, I just want to make sure I'm doing this the right
when
way.
When you go through the share your screen option,
yep,
there'll be an option for more, where then you can untick or remove tool annotations. So like the scribbling or the.
Yeah, I see the share sound and I'm not seeing much else. Let me I'm sorry guys, let me try and figure this out. Yeah, I'm not sure it's gonna let me do it.
Let me see if I can take.
Yeah, I'm gonna continue with it. If I press, I'm on security, annotate on shared content. I just turned it off. I'm all good.
Perfect, you're good. Thank you.
Guys. So he believed a lot in the price, and people who would pay $1,000 would also receive a box of trading cards, and so maybe there's perceived value in that as well, and that's not available for buying on OpenSea or anything like that anymore. But compete and collect trading cards are something that minters got, and so now we find the floor price, even though the Ethereum price is higher. I think the floor price on the left is now about 0.54. So the Ethereum gain is there, but the value of Ethereum has decreased so much, where I think Gary really sees, and VeeFriends really sees the opportunity within Series 2 for people to enter. And I think Gary saw a lot of people on the sidelines and just asking questions, and wanted me to be able to chat with you guys and talk through it a little bit more, and also offer myself, open the door to me through email or Twitter, whatever that looks like in the future. So we can always chat through anything. But there's a lot to consider within Series 2. And so to me, I love chatting with people, because it reminds me of if I walked into a sneaker store or a car dealership or whatever that looks like, and everyone's like, okay, I have no clue I know I want a car, I know I want a pair of sneakers, but I have no clue what to look for. And that's, as an NFT collector, that's how I feel about a lot of things. And so I'm glad to be able to just kind of chat through it right now and then in the future at any point. But I get asked a lot, whether how much, depending on how much Ethereum people have or what they're looking to allocate, kind of what to look for around the floor, and then if it's worthwhile to get a higher tier, quote unquote, character in Gary's world. And so I wanted to touch on both of that with you guys. Advantages around the floor is that Series 2 VeeFriends will kind of always be the best access into the VeeFriends character universe. People really resonate with VeeFriends characters in all different ways. It is Gary created it to be a more accessible way into VeeFriends, and right now it's more than ever that point of entry and that point of access. The same on that second bullet point, more evident market price opportunity. Again, he was very confident at the mint price of $1,000, and obviously with the way Ethereum in the market has gone, feels very confident right around $600 right now at the floor. And Series 2 is just like any other NFT project will have ebbs and flows. And right now it's at a point that he feels very confident about. And I think as the price of Series 2 and of VeeFriends kind of ebbs and flows, and people want to enter into Gary's world and get involved with VeeFriends, that the floor will always be the way to do so, allowing it to be just a more obvious point of entry across the board, and that could surely increase or decrease down the road. But again, Gary is very confident of where this price is and believes that there could be more liquidity. And I think across the whole board of NFTs, the floor usually always has a lot more liquidity. So let's say you're looking to just get in a good entry point, and just want to be a part of VeeFriends and don't care as much about a character, or there's one that the floor that resonates with you, makes a lot of sense. The reason why it's so important to get something that resonates with you personally is because the characters are still incredibly young and the project is still incredibly young, where it's very difficult to actually map out. Sorry, here, let me press decline. It's very difficult to map out the journey and developments of each character over time. Gary talks about how this is going to be his life's work, and he does have these higher tier characters, whether it's Patient Panda or Empathy Elephant, things that he talks about a lot because Gary is all about patience and gratitude. On the top left is Gratitude Gorilla. And those definitely have a perceived higher value and are perceived as better characters. And I'll get to those as well. But it's very difficult to kind of map out how each character, all 251 in Series 2, how their careers will go. And Daniel, could you also kick Badr, BADROUICH, is requesting too much.
And don't click on any links in the chat ever unless Daniel or Tyler
Yes,
post that. So Jamarcus, I wouldn't click on that if I were anybody.
Thank you, Joe. But like I said, very difficult to know and impossible to predict where each character may pan out, because as Gary has some that he's much more passionate about. He loves all the characters, created all of them for a reason, and he's doing a lot of building and collaboration. So who's to say that, and this is not a real scenario, but who's to say that Crocs doesn't reach out to Gary and want to do a Croc collaboration, and now all of a sudden the Croc goes from zero to hero. A great example is yesterday with the Productive Puffin. This was a character that was at the floor a lot, and Gary announced a collaboration with Productive Puffin, and now all of a sudden Productive Puffin is on top as well. And so the floor is really awesome because you are able to get a lower entry point into characters, especially if you are looking to pick up multiple. It allows for a lot more exposure to the project, because maybe instead of a couple higher tier characters, you can get a few closer at the floor and just have more exposure across the board to different characters that all have different just different activations and potential within their own right. But again, like I just said, the Productive Puffin was one. I think yesterday, 2 days ago, VeeFriends announced that there's a collaboration, and it just really went to I think probably around the floor level to being one of the top 10, 15 price characters. And I think that's going to happen a lot as Gary just develops all of them, and it's very difficult to map out which those may be. So getting a character that resonates with you and a scene that resonates with you, something that comes together well, is important, because then you can kind of sit back and be happy with what you actually have and not be waiting for something. Because there's definitely characters that may not, have a collaboration for a few years or be a part of something. And, Gary will do a lot that encompasses all of the characters, right? So that's its whole other right as to why the floor makes a lot of sense. Because there's going to be a lot, whether it's Gary and people wanting to enter Gary's world, or activations that involve all of Series 2, There's going to be a lot that covers all of that. And I think a lot of the fun of just getting in at the floor is having a character that hopefully you like, so you enjoy and can hold on to and resonates with you, but that also just provides a lot of upside for all types of character development. The opposite side of that is a higher tier character. And I'm going to share a resource with you at the end. And Daniel, I have someone named me that keeps requesting control as well. So it is definitely helpful if we can get that out. But higher tier characters, what does that mean? Pretty much like I explained a little bit. Gary has a lot of traits that he's been preaching about and talking about for his whole life, whether it's patience or optimism or gratitude or empathy. Just a lot of characters that are viewed very highly in VeeFriends world because of how much he talks about it. The very lucky black cat is the logo of VeeFriends. It's on the logo. It's what he uses as a standalone logo several times, kind of like he refers to it as like a Pikachu, Mickey Mouse, and he's public about a lot of these characters and how he thinks of them. So those definitely do have a higher perceived value. And I'll go into a little bit of like more detailed pricing at the end and give you guys a resource that I think is very helpful. But pretty much just has a higher value because there is more conviction in the community, more community conviction and confidence in Gary's specific desire to build out that character, just because of how much he believes in that trait. And what I think will happen, and I talk about it a little bit, but I really I come from the sports card world. Gary comes from the sports card and collectibles world. And in a weird way, Gary kind of has his own version of the NBA or the MLB, where he has this league of VeeFriends and all of its characters. And there might be characters that are going to be Hall of Famers and that are going to be all-stars, and some that are going to maybe be on the bench for a little bit until they get their time to shine. Or some that are, Donald Trump is requesting remote control of my screen. Let's get him into series 2. But anyway, there's definitely that fair share of characters that are viewed very highly. And what I think is going to happen is Gary definitely does want to kind of prioritize those characters in a more thoughtful and a more meaningful way because he does care about them so much. And so he refers to Patient Panda and Empathy Elephant as his Buzz and Woody. And so it makes me feel very confident that he's going to develop these characters in a very thoughtful way. And what I think is kind of going to happen across the board is that series 1 will become a very, I think it's already multiples ahead, but it's going to become nearly an untouchable collection in VeeFriends, and people aren't going to be selling them as much and transacting as much. And so all of the action and transacting and volume as we see it already today will be within series 2. And so I think that when that cartoon does come out for Patient Panda, that series 1 may not be obtainable to anyone, or there might not be any listed because it's so low supply, but a lot of the action is going to happen within series 2. We saw it yesterday, I think, with Productive Puffin is a great example just because it happened yesterday. Series 2s, I want to say there were probably 10 sales yesterday because they were more obtainable, more listed, a higher population, whereas only one series 1 was available, which sold as well. So again, that type of stuff I think is very interesting and good to think about. Vladimir Putin also wants in on series 2 if we can take him out of the Zoom call. That's how I should finish that sentence. And on higher tier characters as well, on the top left is the thoughtful 3-horned Harpic. It's the only character that Gary actually created himself. The only made up VeeFriends animal, so he has to develop that one. It's one people really, really like. It's kind of a fan favorite. And just owning that one and having that one would be like, okay, I have a character that I know for sure, Gary really likes and he's talked a lot about. And so I don't have to really speculate as much on which ones I think or which ones I don't, maybe. So higher tier characters to me is just, obviously a more hefty investment, but feels like a really great long-term bet because as series 1s get gobbled up and kind of held, series 2 is just going to be a lot more room for, I guess, arbitrage and transactions. And I think that the top characters will be, very in demand long-term. Is again, the drawings aren't necessarily going to be how the world gets to know these characters, but everybody's, the Harpic looks different from how I was actually drawn, and that's how people are going to get to know it. And just, again, a really interesting thing to think about. So number one, the important thing is, do I like this character? Does it resonate with me? Can I have it and be happy that it's in my wallet, or am I not going to like it and be impatient about some collab coming up and hoping I can get out of it? From a floor perspective, again, it is a really solid arbitrage opportunity. So does 10 at the floor or 2 at the floor or 1 at the floor make sense just to enter? Absolutely. And then also, does Gary care about this character? Has he given hints in Discord? Has he, does he talk about this trait a lot? And then, is this a scene that I like? Is it a scene that I resonate with? Is it something that I think is cool? Does the character look cool in the scene? Is it the gratitude gorilla swinging in the rainforest, or is it the prudent polar bear at the glaciers? Like, there's some really cool combinations. So all things to kind of think about just from a collector's mindset. Scenes we touched on, but again, I think it's similar to the character IP. Oh, I've got an impersonator in here. Daniel Adam Rips at VeeFriends is requesting control. Anyway, IP development very similar to characters. How is he going to build out each of these scenes? How he's going to build out each of these scenes over time, and also potentially build activations through them. Again, knowing that maybe it doesn't happen anytime soon for a particular one, or we don't know kind of which one is coming next. But the pickleball court definitely shed light and it gave an indication on how he's thinking about scenes. I think the last thing I want to talk about is, as are on my hoodie right here, Gary has 15 new characters in Series 2. And this is probably one of my favorite things to discuss, because he created them for people to burn book games for. And meaning there's a separate VeeFriends collection called Book Games, which is a separate thing. Maybe someone could drop a link in the chat for book games from VeeFriends in particular. So don't click on any random ones. But it's another collection that Gary kind of uses as his currency through VeeFriends, and people were able to take those and burn them for new characters. There's only 15 of them, and the reason why I think they're really awesome is because Series 1 is so special, since it is the rookie cards of VeeFriends, the fossils, Gary calls them, of VeeFriends, the original way these characters were created. These new 15 characters, their quote unquote Series 1 and their quote unquote rookie card is with Series 2, meaning if Gary really blows up and develops these characters, I know he loves the Red Devil, the Fearless Fairy, the Competitive Clown. Bill Gates is requesting control of my screen a lot. I think he's very excited about Series 2. I just saw him the other day kind of trashing NFTs, so I'm a little confused. But anyway, the new characters are awesome because they've kind of worked their way into the floor a little bit more, and don't have too much of a premium. Some of the higher tier ones do, such as the Red Devil. But I think these are really cool because when Gary really does develop these characters, there isn't going to be a Series 1 for people to collect. It's really just going to be like, these are their rookie cards, which is unique from the rest of them because all the other 236 characters do have Series 1 NFTs. And so there's a sheet that I'm about to show as well to you guys, and these new characters are highlighted in yellow. Lionel Messi, man, we're getting a lot of cool people in here. So that's everything. I'm going to click on this link just to show you guys what this is, and I'm going to share this link with you guys as well. I should have done that previously. But this link is super helpful because what it does is it brings everybody to a sheet that lists all of the characters and their prices. On OpenSea, it actively pulls from the site, so it's not as complicated as like looking at every single character all the time and doing that kind of dirty work. And so that's all here. That grunt work, I should say, but all here, all the characters. I think OpenSea is having a little bit of an API issue where some of them aren't updating as immediate as they should, but usually works incredibly well. And what's also great is I'm going to click on a tab called Character Rarity, and it actually ranks it takes all of their prices. Joe Biden is requesting a lot of control on my screen. But it kind of just ranks all of them out. It takes their floor prices and says, I'm going to rank them out. I actually bolded in some of the ones that stuck out to me as like, these are really awesome characters, but just allows you to kind of scroll through and see, okay, how are these priced? How are they ranked within the VeeFriends world? And okay, which of, if I want to scroll down, which of these at the floor really stick out to people? And I see something like a Tidy Troll, which I know Gary really likes, and the Impeccable in Astronaut, which means alien in Russian. And I know Gary really likes the alien. So just a cool way to view all of the characters. And then if I were to hop on this one and click any character, it would bring me to their OpenSea page. And I think it's just a really cool resource for people. So I'm going to copy this and put it in the chat. I'm actually going to copy this whole sheet and put it in the chat. But again, that was just kind of a broad info way to think about Series 2. And now I would love to hop into Q&A. My email is also at the bottom, adam.rips@VaynerMedia. And I really do enjoy chatting about like anything. So whether I can help out on emails and go back and forth again on a quick call, I'm always super happy to do it. So again, I think we've got well over 20 minutes, 25 minutes to go into Q&A, and would love to see if anyone has any questions.
Perfect. Thank you, Adam. If anyone in the audience does have a question, on the bottom of your Zoom, you can click on reactions and click raise hand, and we'll go ahead and call some folks up. All right, I'm going to go ahead and request for Enoch if you want to unmute, if you got a question for Adam or Joe.
Awesome. Hey, thank you so much, Adam and team. Really, really cool learning a little bit more about VeeFriends 2. My question was kind of around, I guess, your thoughts regarding the Dope Dodo. So I minted the Dope Dodo and like, I thought, cool, it's dope. So just kind of stick to it. And I guess I've just never really thought about it, but like when I found out we were doing this this session, I thought I might as well, I guess, ask a little bit more about the Dope Dodo. Obviously, like being dope is dope, but you know, it's nothing like I guess specific or tells much in terms of Gary's thought process around like Dope Dodo. So yeah, I guess I was just kind of curious about that character in itself. Either way, I don't really mind. I'm just glad to be part of the community. But yeah, I guess I was just curious about it.
Cool. By the way, I stopped sharing my screen because I was just getting countless people just requesting and it was distracting me. So I'm going to stick here for now. But the Dope Dodo, again, it's one that I have a little bit of insight, but don't have as much insight into, which is why I'm like, yeah, the top characters are really cool because I have a lot more confidence in Gary's ability to build it. But I also feel like the Dope Dodo is one that has a lot of potential for collaborations and for people to resonate with. The one thing I remember on it is that it has a signature, the series 1 drawing, and some of the drawings Gary would add his signature into different, you know, kind of artistic areas of the drawing, or also the number 5 he would add into drawings. And so the Dope Dodo has a signature on the tail. And I know it's going to mean, you know, Gary's been talking about how it's going to mean something in series 1, and series 2 might just be more of an artistic and like just cool thing to have. But I think he does like that one. He's recommended that one on several occasions before in some calls that we've done. And so I think he thinks about it in a similar way where it might go down that same path of like Swaggy Sea Lion, Flex and Fox, Fly Firefly, where it's more of like a streetwear, like pop culture. I think Dope Dodo is kind of that same type of vibe, and maybe how he's thinking about it. While also, yeah, because you know, there's a lot of really cool, obviously streetwear, pop culture companies and brands where it feels like a character that could have some cool collaborations down the road. But I don't have a ton of insight as to how Gary is. I'm going to put a link in here for everyone in the chat, but as to how Gary in particular is thinking of that one, but kind of a little bit of insight.
Yeah, cool. Awesome. I appreciate it. Thanks, Adam.
Of course. Guys, I'm going to put in the chat so you can click that. I'm going to put in, this is a link to the presentation that I just put in on the slide that has that side-by-side comparison of series 1 and series 2, and also on the last tab, there's that link to that spreadsheet. Again, it's a resource that is, I think when you click on the link, it brings you to the right OpenSea, but right now OpenSea is not pulling the exact right prices. It's still in the right area, but it's showing like Benevolent Barn Owl as number 1, which would be really cool, but it's never really been up there before. So just as an FYI, I'll kind of put that in the chat a few more times, but let's take another question or two.
Perfect. We're going to bounce around here. Ruben, go ahead and unmute if you got a question.
Hey, what's up? Yeah, so thank you so much for jumping on here, bringing a little bit more clarity to a few other things. I was checking out OpenSea while you were chatting on some of those characters, so that was pretty cool. Question. So I have the Perfect Persian Cat, and I saw that it was number 1, or at least it's going to be, I think, 100 within the cards, right? Is there, besides that, I mean, why choose the Perfect Persian Cat to be 100? And like, what do you see the future? Of course, we don't see everything, but a little bit of the future of the Perfect Persian Cat.
Yeah, awesome. Gary really liked that one. it's a compete and collect, for just for more context for people. It is the trading card game that came with VeeFriends Series 2, as we touched on, for people who minted it. And it's basically like the model of the card game War, where every character is ranked and people go like, okay, 1, 2, 3, and they flip over their card. Whoever has the higher score character wins. The perfect Persian cat is the only character that is a perfect 75. And so I think this is kind of going to be the game of, meaning each character is ranked on from a 50 to 75 ranking, and there's only one perfect score, and that's perfect Persian cat. Gary thinks a lot about how do his characters compete, and how do games get built out within VeeFriends, whether it's a video game or a mobile app or something of the sort, and of course with this card game. So I think that I think it's an indication of like, hey, this perfect Persian cat is going to be like a good competitor down the road throughout the stuff that Gary does. But it's certainly like probably one of his main ones of attention within Series 2, and started it off like, I think the first kind of activation he could possibly do, the Persian cat kind of took over with this collab, or with this product. And I think it's how he's kind of just thinking about it as like a fierce competitor, and really likes that one internally.
Awesome. Thank you, Ruben.
Of course, I'm getting a couple questions to share this spreadsheet as well. Someone also asked what determines the ones to watch. I'm not exactly sure. This is a great resource, and I think it's ones that maybe have been higher in the past and are a little bit lower now, or just very loved by the community. Again, the top 15 prices are highlighted in green. The yellow ones are highlighted for the 15 new characters. And if you go to that character rarity tab on the bottom, I also I bolded in some of the ones where, as I took 10 minutes before this call, just like, okay, these are ones to look out for, because one, either the prices are a little bit lower on OpenSea, or two, I've seen them lower in the past and I think are like just really cool ones to look out for, whether it's right now or down the line. It's just I think I'm always happy to chat more on that with people as well. But I'm going to take this link and copy the link. I'm going to put in the chat, so this is safe to click, and we can go on to another question.
Perfect. Bouncing over back to Matt. Matt, if you got a question.
Yeah. Hey, thanks, guys. Rip's good to connect with you. Thanks for putting this on and navigating some of the celebrities in the chat.
That's really cool.
So I missed the boat. I was late into Series 1. I ended up trading up to a core Harpic. I have 40 Series 2. And went really heavy on the books. So my question is, I have a list of characters. So like last night I picked up the werewolf, the heart trooper, and the entrepreneur elf. But I have a list of like, I want to kind of build out my wallet of the ones that I like the most. But as I was looking at like werewolf, there is an evolving werewolf for like probably 0.45 more than what I picked it up for. Can you go into what the team's thoughts are on the evolving versus like, hey, there's this character, it's probably like a top 25, top 50 character. Plus it's one that really resonates with me. Should I spend the extra ETH if I had the liquidity to grab something like that versus like, I really like the one in the Rose Garden. I would love to hear you elaborate a little bit more on that.
Awesome. Again, as a little more context for people, we're talking about poses here, and the evolving pose was it shows the character kind of leaping off of Series 2. I mean, leaping off of its Series 1 drawing. So it kind of shows the journey and evolution of the Series 1 drawing into its new character. And those were given exclusively to Series 1 holders. So this well-connected werewolf that he's referring to, a well-connected werewolf Series 1 owner, was given for free that NFT, and now it's decided, hey, I want to list it on OpenSea. Within the poses in particular, I obviously spoke a little more on characters and on scenes. I don't have as much insight into how Gary is necessarily thinking of those. The evolvings are very interesting. They are the rarest of those kind of common poses, and again, there are like the upside downs. There's like 12 of them, and but of the more common poses, they are the rarest. By nature, the most exclusive. Again, they weren't available in the mint and were only given to Series 1 holders, so will likely be the least and the most held on to and the least sold. And again, just I think kind of subjectively the coolest looking, which I think also matters. From a utility standpoint, Gary's been hinting at them a lot. I don't can't offer too much insight into it. I think that being the rarest, being the coolest looking, being exclusive to Series 1 does matter a lot. And again, the reason from a collector standpoint, I think that it could be, could it be something where, and again, this is just me talking, I don't have an insight into it, but is it something where if you have the Series 1 and the evolving Series 2 still and you didn't sell it, then there's some type of special thing there, or is there something special that involves purely evolvings, whether it's some type of activation or utility that's around those. So I don't know, which is why around poses or around scenes and such, I try not to like speculate with others, even though it could be very fun. Where like I do know that he really loves the heart pick. Like that's no doubt to me. The only character he created, like a very, very sought after character in Gary's mind, where there's been a 90 ETH sale and an 85 ETH sale for some of the higher tier ones where yeah, it's a very sure thing that the heart pick is a very sought after character. And so that I can nail with you. Evolving, I don't have as much insight to, but what I do tell people sometimes, because you ask about it, is I think it's really cool to kind of cover bases within Series 2. So like, hey, I have this scene that I really like, and that base is covered because I have that scene, and I have this character I really like. And so in an instance where there might be an evolving for a little bit more, and it is a character that you really like, yeah, that can make sense, because then should there be something, one, you really like the character and you would have gotten it anyway. And then should there be something that happens for purely evolving poses, or there is any type of benefit, then spending a little bit extra, if it's within your means, could make a lot of sense, because then you also have that base covered for the evolving pose. And again,
I mean, like Adam, simplicity wise, the evolving pose is just rarer than most of the other poses. So
yeah, I
just
talked
straight
for a
up on
long
that level.
I do talk for a long time, but kind of how I think about it is like rarest, coolest, utility unsure, but worth picking up if it's within your means, while knowing that okay, maybe something doesn't happen in the near future, or perhaps not at all for evolvings in particular. But Gary does hint at that type of stuff, and just does seem to be the most cool for people.
Yeah. Hey, thanks for the time, Rips. If I can just ask a quick follow up.
Please.
So, and I would love to connect with you offline. I sent you an email a couple weeks ago, and I know you're crazy busy, but the Forever Phoenix, probably my favorite character, and I grabbed a couple of those with the off of the book games on the mint. But though that floor right now is really low, I do have this list of like all of the characters. So as a collector, from your perspective, would you rather stock up on as many of the characters you like, even though some of those poses I'm not in favor of, like the resting pose or the manifesting pose, versus broadening your portfolio with like one of all of the characters? How would you go about that?
Good question. I don't, again, like I've had a couple of people reach out. I'm like, yeah, like, is there anything really cool about owning, five, like let's take Forever Phoenix, right? Like owning all 5 poses. Is that what you're referring to?
I mean, just grabbing as many as I can.
Understood.
Yeah.
I think the Phoenix to me is in particular sticks out. Again, it's kind of viewed by the community as a whole as a pretty high tier character. Gary refers a lot to wanting to like rise from the dirt, as like rise as a phoenix from the dirt. Like he's had me like look that up before to show people. But he's recommended the Phoenix several times. And so I think that character as a whole is very solid. I think I bolded it in as one that sticks out to me. And it's been higher priced before. Again, I think that exposure is just really cool to more characters, where, from a personal viewpoint, would rather have like, 5 characters that I really think are cool and that I want to be a part of, as opposed to like 3 characters and then 3 of the Phoenix, because they seem reasonable. And I think from an arbitrage standpoint, like yeah, there could be something there, but from just a pure collecting standpoint, just like how I'd rather have basketball cards of 5 different players, so I can watch all 5 of those players play and have a lot of fun kind of following each of their games and all that type of stuff, is how I think about Series 2, where kind of the more characters you could get exposure to, because it's so young. There might be 46 other characters that have their day, quote unquote, before the Phoenix, and maybe 2 of those just happen to be ones that you collect. And so I think that's just part of the fun, as opposed to being heavier in one character. Again, kind of the same, and then I'll move on, but the same kind of thing where sometimes people ask me like, should I get 1 Series 1 or 15 Series 2? And from a long-term perspective, like I always have a very difficult time thinking anything could be of higher value to Gary than a series one, and what he wants to deliver the most value to. But something really special about series two is that with that same allocation of funds, you could get 15 or 20 characters in series two and just have a lot more exposure. So from a personal perspective, I think more
Can I
characters.
touch on that for a second too, Adam?
Yeah.
So I think that it's a good question. And also the thing about like having a more diverse exposure, as collaborations, we tend to we don't want to hit one over and over and over and over, right? We want to make sure that we're spreading the love across all the characters. And so if you're exposing yourself to a bunch of different characters, then you're exposing yourself possibly to a bunch of different collaborations, which could be very fun. You know what I mean? Whereas if you have the Forever Phoenix, then you're basically the collaboration would be focused towards that more so. And I think that, it's just a matter of what you think is fun, what you think is more valuable. But I would just wanted to touch from like that collaboration standpoint. We definitely want to make sure that we're diversifying and exposing as many characters as possible to those collaborations. So the way that I thought about that made me think that when you are exposed to more characters, you're exposed to more diversity of opportunities for different collaborations and fun things to happen.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Matt. We're jumping over now to Stephen. Stephen, if you want to go ahead and unmute, if you got a question for Adam and Joe.
Yeah, hey, thanks for doing this. I appreciate this. Got a question, and I jumped on about 15 minutes late. So if you already answered it, I'm so sorry. But can you talk about specs a little bit? Gary's hinted in Discord about specs with the lava and the gold and all those type of specs. Can you hit on that a little bit for us?
Yeah, 100%. Spectaculars are the one of ones in Gary's collection. Touched on it briefly, but not a ton of specifics around them. Kind of viewed as like the cream of the crop in VeeFriends, both in series one and series two. There were several different tiers of rarity in series one, and the only one that kind of stuck within series two was Spectacular. So obviously it is something that Gary wants to build and means a lot to him. I think he's building Spectacular as a whole as being the grails and ultimate chase of VeeFriends. Within physical collectibles and collaborations, he tries to incorporate rarities and spectaculars. We're seeing it in Compete and Collect, which is coming out, and especially in Uno. He's like, okay, one random spectacular per deck, and people are now chasing the spectacular cards, and I think they are kind of always going to be viewed as the highest tier of rarity and tier of chase in VeeFriends. And apart from character to character, is building the brands and the prestige of the bubblegum and diamond and hologram and lava and emerald spectacular colors. So I think that's just separate from it, character to characters, that he does think a lot about spectaculars and how to build and create value for those tiers of rarity as a whole. And series two in particular, they're incredibly rare, meaning there's 55,555 tokens, and there's only, I want to say, 1,300 and change spectaculars. So make up a very, very small group. And Gary has been hinting at them in Discord and whatnot, because I do think it is like a solid enough group where there could be utilities to it that are exclusive and that look that way. I don't have a lot of insight as to how he thinks about it as a whole. When Gary gives out hints, Gary has, as you could imagine, a mind of his own. So I don't have a lot of insight and intuition on how he's actually thinking about spectaculars from a utility standpoint or any benefits. But I think just the pure rarity and supply and demand of that always works out. Again, from the sports card world, from collectible world, the rarest, the one of ones are always most coveted. And as he builds series two, I think that will build. And then I think he's always thinking of ways to make spectaculars kind of the biggest chasers, both in physical and digital. He used them in book games. Book games is focused with the scenes and with the backgrounds of being all different spectacular colors. So just building that brand within VeeFriends and then also having them be the rarest and also very cool looking is important, apart from any utility or anything that he decides to add down the line.
And you don't know what he's thinking about it, but you do know that he is thinking about it. he is aware that specs, like we
Exist.
want,
Yeah, he
well, not
he
only exist, but like we're thoughtful on
yes.
making sure that we, that we want to make sure that they're special and that they feel, spectacular, but yeah, that it is, I think that spectaculars are, like you said, it's a more rare, and that we might not necessarily know what Gary is thinking about as far as utility, but I know that Gary definitely is constantly thinking about adding value to them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just a matter of how to do it fairly for everybody as well, and to do it in a mindful Minakawa type of way, I think. Thank you. Yeah.
Well said, gentlemen. Thank you, Stephen, so much. I think we got time for one last question here. I'm just going to bring in Benjamin. Benjamin, if you got a question for the crew.
Hey, Adam. Hey, everyone. Good to see you guys. So I have one VeeFriend 2, a Hungry Hammerhead, and then I'm looking at possibly getting an Alert Ape. Do you have any insights into those two?
Yeah, definitely. What was your first one? Oh, the Hungry Hammerhead. Hungry Hammerhead is cool. Gary likes that one a lot. He just finds himself as hungry pretty often. But doesn't eat as much as you think in person, but hungry mentally, for sure. And so not a ton on that one, but Hungry Hammerhead, I do know he likes. The Alert Ape is viewed always as one of the top characters in VeeFriends world. I think a lot of that comes from, I'm gonna try and keep this concise, but I know it as fact, so I'm gonna say it. Gary loves CryptoPunks NFTs, one of his favorite collections, one of the highest tier NFTs. And within CryptoPunks, which kind of set the standard for many NFTs going forward, including VeeFriends, but kind of set the standard for how NFT collections are created and made. They were very, very rare ones called apes, aliens, and zombies. And apes then turned into an NFT phenomenon, of course, with Bored Apes and just kind of grew a lot in popularity along with those other, zombies and aliens are just big in NFT culture. So I think that's one, is that there's just a mass general appeal throughout NFTs to that character and to Gary as well, who created the drawing. He loves that series 1 drawing because it has all the signatures all over it. Really, really likes the Alert Ape. Looks really cool in series 2, and just one he talks about a lot, and is thinking about a lot. So I do know that's what he views as one of his top characters. And I think it kind of comes from CryptoPunks for him, and just from an NFT mass appeal makes a lot of sense because it's an ape and people love apes, and it's a very mass kind of collector base for them. Cool. Let's try and get one or two more, Daniel.
Let's get one more. Yeah. Ashwin's been patient here. I'm going to unmute Ashwin if you got a question.
Yep. I do have a question. I think I sent it over to Adam on Twitter earlier. So I have about 7 to 10K worth of liquid cash, which I'm planning to bring in over the next 3 to 6 months. And the options that I'm considering right now is either buying a VF1 off the floor, or buying a bunch of floor VF2s and flipping them up eventually to get into a character which I like, or going for some of the specific characters in VF2, something like a Red Devil, and then put rest of the stuff into book games. So basically the question is, let's say I have 10K, and how would you suggest the best way to distribute it to get a VF1 which I like? Probably a Heart Trooper or an Ape or a Heartbreak. Those are like the 3 or 4 which I am targeting.
Totally. There's a lot to that question. And I'm gonna try and touch on it as concisely as I can. Series 1 has been a project that has seen a $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 floor price. It is very obviously what Gary wants to drive the most long-term value and utility towards. And from a long-term perspective, I see, no other way. I see no way in which Gary doesn't prioritize Series 1, and that Series 1s are not built as the grails and the crown jewels of the VeeFriends collection. That in particular feels like from that budget perspective, a much more the price that it's at right now of $8,000 is something we have not seen in a super long time, and feels like much more of a timing opportunity as opposed to series 2, because I think series 2 will just always be more available, right? There's 55,000 and the floor can definitely ebb and flow more over time, but there's 220 of each character, and it just feels like that collection will never have, won't, and I shouldn't say will never, but in the near future, like doesn't have the same urgency as per se a series 1 as far as a price opportunity. And I don't mean it that series 1, series 2 can't go up in value quick or anything like that, because it certainly can. But I'm saying series 2 came down. I mean, series 1 came down from a $60,000, $50,000 price. So that opportunity just feels more present, and from a long-term view makes a ton of sense. What I really like about series 2, and I touched on before, is that instead of one series 1, you could get 15 series 2s or 5 really good series 2s. And I think that just comes down to a personal perspective on, is there a character that you like in your particular budget in series 1, or is it something in series 2 where you just really love these 5 characters, and maybe from a long-term utility standpoint, like, or long, it's not as important to you to go to VCon maybe over 2 years, because VCon also was a great added value for series 1. But I think it's just a personal preference of if you'd rather have a series 1 and be in that game and be in for the long haul on Gary and have that VCon access, or if you'd rather get characters that you really like in series 2 and just hold on to those. But I have a very tough time over, kind of glossing over series 1.
Can I ask this in a different way, Adam?
Yeah.
Can I ask this in a different way, just for fun? First of all, never financial advice ever.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Secondly, let me just ask this in a different way. Adam, we give you $10,000 right now. Okay. We're giving you $10,000 right now, and you have 5 minutes to go spend it on VeeFriends World. What do you do?
Again, series 1 is just the key to me. I think it's what Gary views as his alpha pass, like as his key NFTs, his inaugural collection, the VeeFriends rookie cards, the most important of the whole ecosystem. Like that makes 100% the most sense to me. That's not to say that, maybe the series 1-2 floor does double or triple and the series 1 floor doesn't, because it's not as accessible. And it's not as liquid. So I do definitely see that point of view, but for me, knowing Gary and how long-term he is, series 1 is
you buy a series 1.
And then to me, it depends, like, hey, is there a character at the floor that you like? If there is, grab it and then allocate the rest to series 2 and book games, because then it also gives you more potential for liquidity and access and exposure to more characters. And then if there's a character that really sticks out, or maybe a more rare scene or more rare background in series 1, it's worth going for. But I would not stray away from series 1 if you're like in it for the long haul on.
Yeah, my opinion would have been, it sounds like you wanted a series 1, like you wanted to work to that. I would probably, if you have the opportunity, that opportunity might not come around again.
The opportunity will be there for series 2 just because it's that popular, but it wouldn't shock me. I would never have thought a few months ago that series 1 would be available for $8,000, $9,000, which, by the way, is a lot of money, right? But for what one Gary thinks this becomes, and what we've seen it already has been, not like the opportunity just feels a lot more like present and more for the taking than it does for series 2 for that budget in particular.
Makes sense.
I buy
to
series 1, and then I try to get a mindful Minakawa from Mount Ida College. That's what I do.
I was actually thinking a series 1 and probably a Red Devil. But
wow.
That also makes sense.
That'd be nice.
Yeah.
And the Red Devil is very cool also, because it's kind of Gary's top series 2 character, and it's a new character right here. So it is its quote unquote rookie card. So I really love that one as well, but it's hard to go anything over series 1 in my eyes. Cool. Let's do one more, Daniel, and then again, I'll emphasize it afterwards, but I'm always available to chat with everyone. But let's try and grab one more.
Perfect. Dave, if you want to go ahead and unmute.
Yo, can you guys hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. First, I just want to say hi, Rips. Of course, everybody. I hope you guys are well. It's Dav, Class Dave. So I'm in a Twitter space right now, and I'm asking a question by proxy for them. It's because they want me to do it. I'm live tweeting you, Rips. So if you want to go back and read your thread, you can. So essentially, the community is just asking, within scenes, if the, I guess, top 10 higher scenes like Underrated Underworld and Icy Ice Cave that are just strictly more rare, if Gary is thoughtful about those, will have more, you know, notable utility or whatever, similar to specs, right? Like if like people want to invest in a scene that they really think is awesome, like can they maybe in the back of their mind say at some point to 20, 30, whatever down the road, that maybe that scene, because it's more rare and came at a higher cost basis, might offer more utility or something more cool down the road. So that's the question from the Twitter space.
Sweet. And I'm very aware that I need to be more present on Twitter Spaces, but
dude, you're there enough, man. We love having you. So you're a busy man. Don't worry.
Thank you. I appreciate it. So how I view the rarest scenes is yes, he was very diligent and intentional about selecting which ones those may be, the rare, you know, which ones he wants the rarest ones to be, and how many of those and what percentages those look like. And so he definitely is very thoughtful about the rarest of the rare scenes. Most of them are in the 900 to 1,000 level. There's some that are in like the mid hundreds, and then like there's some planets and locations that are in like the 5, 10, 2,500 range. Again, he's thinking of scenes a lot the same way as character, this just developing the same way he'll develop characters. How can he develop scenes? And because by nature, again, this is a collector speaking and someone who has not heard this from Gary, and of course, as Joe says, I should have said at the start, but like never any financial advice.
Of course,
it's much easier to pull off access and utilities for smaller amounts of people. But again, for example, one of the rare backgrounds is called Rainbow Planet or Cynicicium. It's not easy to connect like a dot to what an activation may look like, right? Like a pickleball court, which we've seen is like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. You know, Gary's not taking people to Cynicicium because it doesn't exist, but that also goes on the same line to me of the three-horned harpic doesn't exist, but that's going to be a really awesome character because Gary's going to make it one. So I think like, you know, there's some really rare scenes that he intentionally made rare, and how is he thoughtful about developing those and creating those 100%. I just don't have as much insight and intuition on how he's going to do that and how he's thinking about them, which is why, again, I do like talking more about characters because like I just have a lot more like I've been talking characters with him for maybe 6 months.
More in the library.
Yeah. So that to me is like where I tried, because it's less quote unquote speculation for me because I have more certainty within characters. But the scenes were definitely intentional. The planets and the Hollow House and the Honey Empire are just ones that definitely resonated more with him and he thinks a lot about. But to me, it's harder to match up to like a certain utility, but it's definitely something he's thinking about.
Cool, man. Thank you. Thank you to everyone on the team for doing this too. This is helpful.
Of course, we'll do it more often.
So Rips, we got one more actually in line. Do you want to?
Yeah.
100%. Amazing.
As long as no one has to run.
Last but not least, Futures, if you got a question.
Oh, snap. Hey, how's it going, guys?
Hey, sir.
Cool. Hey, I have a methodical mammoth and a joyous jellyfish. So, you kind of touched on it right now as far as the different scenes. I was trying to see if I am. Part of me is kind of just like set it and forget it, and I just want to make sure I haven't missed anything as far as the VeeFriends. Like I know I have the cards coming and things like that, but if we are thinking about getting more in terms of the scenes, is there any incentive in collecting scenes that match if you already have certain VeeFriends, V2s? Or, if we want to collect more, should we just try to get the ones that we can at price? Or is there any incentive with the actual scenes in the background?
Good question. So when I think about scenes, the first thing that hits my radar, again, I think it's the same development as characters. How does where does each character live? How do they interact with each other? Are they in the back of a children's book or a cartoon or a video game? And I think he built all of those in their own unique ways. And I think, again, on Dave's question, the planets are just like a complete different territory in VeeFriends world. But back to your question, I think that if you're a basketball fan, if you're a football fan, if you love wine, there's a wine cellar and there's a courtside seats and there's a 5-yard line. And just from a personal perspective, like that can be a really cool thing to have. It's like a character you really like on a scene that you really like. Should there be any added value or benefits down the line, but also like, hey, if there's not, I still really like this token and it's very cool to me. When you talk about like the scenes that go together, I do think it matters a lot. meaning there's a forever field. And so the forever phoenix on forever fields is really cool. The gratitude gorilla at Gratitude Grove is really cool. Is the adaptable alien on one of the planets, or is the adventurous astronaut on the spaceship? Like there's some really cool stuff like that to look at. The nugget that I think of, that I thought of when you asked that question, is Gary did a Discord stage a while back, and he actually said that he was talking with AJ about like special things to do for people who had those matching scenes. And I feel comfortable bringing it up because he talked about it publicly as well. But I think there is a lot to like, yeah, this ambitious angel is in the clouds and it looks awesome.
Right.
Or the to the moon, or the Hodl hyena is at like the Crypto Creek, and it just goes together really well, just from a collector's lens. But I think between like building IP for Gary, having a scene that resonates with you from a personal preference, and then the collector's mindset of like which characters go well in each scene is something to think about. And Joe, I feel like
I think that we're hitting on a lot of the scenes, and like obviously the best part about a lot of NFTs is there's almost like a treasure hunty feel to it. There's a little bit of like, like obviously when we're talking about these background scenes, like the court translated to pickleball, right?
Yeah.
And so we might not necessarily know what would be coming up, but you probably have a good idea of like putting it together in your mind of like, okay, well, 5-yard line, maybe you might have an idea that it has something to do with sports, right? And so I think that the fun is kind of figuring out what direction you think would be a cool direction to go to, and what Gary kind of putting the pieces together in Gary's mind of what that could potentially be, if it's utility, if it's IP, and then kind of going in that direction and seeing what fun surprises come from that. So yeah, I mean, it does seem like, initially when Gary said Series 2 is not going to have utility, with pickleball and all these other things, he's obviously adding value to it. And I think that will probably continue to happen. And with background scenes, it's just a matter of what you think would make sense for Gary to kind of, what direction you think he might go in, and then possibly pulling the trigger on going in that direction yourself. So that's the way that I kind of think about it, almost like a treasure hunt sort of thing, because there are surprises and fun secrets within the world that will be exposed, or that will happen that hasn't happened yet. And it's a matter of putting the time and I know you said kind of set it and forget it a little bit, and I'm kind of that way because we're probably really busy, but like there is something to kind of the fun of kind of exploring and putting yourself in finding this sort of treasure hunty ness of the VeeFriends world. So yeah, with the scenes, that's kind of my feel on it.
Awesome. No, I appreciate you guys. I don't know if anybody asked it, just because as a leaving question, with the cards that we're physically getting, how is the physical trading aspect going to work once everybody gets them?
Yeah, I think it's going to be really fun to see whatever, like, I think it's going to be very popular on like Discord and Twitter with like, hey, what do people get? The purpose of the game is for people to be able to compete with each other, whether it's you with a friend or with family or whatever that looks like. But I'm from the sports card world, and a lot of that stuff happens through like eBay and on Discord. I think will be popular with VeeFriends and on Twitter, like, hey, who wants to trade? There was one other previous card release where a lot of people were selling on eBay and doing it through Twitter and Discord. So I think that those avenues are going to be like how people actually trade with each other and make those connections.
Dope, man. I appreciate you guys. This was dope, man. I've been in the Discord, but I haven't been like a heavy grind Discord person.
Yeah.
So I was chatting the other day, and that shit said like VeeFriends rookie, and I was like, oh fuck, like come on, bro. Like I'm invested, but like I just gotta chat more.
It gets busy in there, but it's fun to hang out.
No, I appreciate
we need you in there. We need you.
Yeah, man. I'm gonna chop it up some more, but I appreciate y'all. This was real cool.
You got it. I want to hit Ruben once more, and then I'll wrap it up. But I feel like Ruben's got something good.
No pressure.
Ruben's back.
He's back. So you mentioned earlier that you know a little bit more about the actual characters versus the backdrops and the poses and all of that. So I said, since we're at the last anyways, I'm just gonna ask him about another one of mine, which I love, is Macro Micro Gary B. I dig it so much because in my mind, So years and years ago, you know, jumping into entrepreneurship, super hard. So all I would do is just listen to him, Gary Vee, and a few other entrepreneurs. And the macro micro concept, correct me if I'm wrong, and love to hear your insight, is like clouds and dirt. And I used to hear that all the time, at least in the very beginning. Maybe not so much now, but definitely like OG status. He would say it all the time. And that's what the Gary B kind of reflected to me before I purchased it. I tried buying one from D-Rock. He was like, nope. So then, you know, I went on OpenSea and purchased one, I don't know, 2 weeks ago. But what are your thoughts with the Gary B macro micro?
Just art. So that was the micro was one of the just art series ones, which means Gary basically just drew a piece of art and it wasn't a character. Gary wanted that to be a bumblebee in series 2, or like the bees. And I don't have a ton of insight as to like why, but I think it's just a really clever and cool design. I think all of the just arts in series 2 are really cool. So I don't know exactly on how he's thinking about it, but it was an intentional thing where like, yeah, he wanted it to be bees. And then it's like a big bee with macro and then a tiny bee on its foot with I'm missing that. Big one macro, obviously, little one micro. So I think just like a cool tandem there. Around the dirt and clouds, like, yeah, I agree. There's a lot that like is just rooted in core Gary. And I think that's what Just Art was in a big way, because he has be the bigger person, suffocate hate, just like things that were near and dear to him. So how he wants to communicate that in series 2 for macro micro happened to be through bees. And then the Gary B is a separate character, which is you know, something that Gary is obviously very passionate about, and like the only one that represents him as a human. So I like them. I'm not exactly sure why he chose B, but I think it came out really cool, and it's like a cool progression from series 1 to 2. Sweet. Well, I mean, I'd love to do this more often with people. I wanted to, I know Joe's available on Twitter as well. I'm available on Twitter at Adam Rips. Joe is like, yo, Joe, why he'll close himself out too. But for me, I always love talking with people. Again, I have fun with it. There's no one in my household or a 900-mile radius who knows what a VeeFriend is, which will soon be different. But I love talking about it, and I'm happy to do it. My email, I'm going to drop it one more time, but it's adam.rips@VaynerMedia, which is better from like, hey, from like if to help people buy, my email is better because I'm using VaynerMedia specifically for that. And then just general questions. Like Twitter does get more congested because I also get a lot of like spam in my inbox, and I try and filter a little bit more, but email is best. Available on both. Would love to be able to chat with people. Always happy to do it, and we get very happy and excited about this stuff. So I'm glad that people were able to take the hour plus to chat with me.
Yeah, good job, Adam. Good job. Bravo to you. You know what I think next time we should have done is like ask people a question, like ask the question people a question, like, did you go to VCon, or like something fun like that next time. Just throwing that out there. Yeah, so good job, Adam. Thanks everyone for showing up. Yeah, I'm YOJYO, like Yojo 333 on Twitter if you want to DM with any questions. I mostly do collaborations and things like that. But yeah, I really appreciate everybody for stopping in. It was fun, and hopefully we can do this again soon. And yeah, thanks, Adam.
Perfect. Thank you everyone for joining again. That's going to conclude our session. Hopefully
Thanks,
we'll do one really soon. That was really insightful. Thank you for taking the time, Adam. The slide was amazing. We're going to have this recorded, so anyone who's just joining in, came late, came early, left, this will be available on the official VeeFriends YouTube. So just stay tuned for that, and wishing everyone a great day. Talk to you guys soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.